20 things John F. Kennedy loved that you can still buy today. In February 1962, before he signed the executive order banning trade with Cuba, John F. Kennedy sent his press secretary Pierre Salinger to find 1,000 H. Upmann Petite Coronas before morning. Salinger came back with 1,200. Kennedy signed the embargo. The cigars went into a humidor in the residence. The most famous personal stockpile in American political history began burning down on February 7, 1962. You can still buy that cigar, about $15 for one. H. Upmann moved its non-Cuban operation to the Dominican Republic after the Revolution, and the Petite Corona has been rolled continuously for over a century. Almost everything else Kennedy chose for himself is the same story. Still made, still findable. Some of it not what people think. This is John F. Kennedy's life, item by item. Hyannis Port. Begin on the Cape, the Kennedy compound on Nantucket Sound, 6 acres bought by Joseph Kennedy in 1928. The summer wardrobe Kennedy wore on that lawn is the wardrobe almost every American man inherited. The Brooks Brothers 2-button suit. Brooks Brothers opened on Catherine and Cherry Streets in Lower Manhattan in 1818. They tailored Lincoln's second inauguration coat, the same coat he was wearing the night Booth shot him at Ford's Theater, with an eagle embroidered into the lining and the words, "One country, one destiny." Kennedy was a customer at Harvard, in the Senate, through his presidency. The deliberate American silhouette he wore better than any politician of his generation. The Madison fit, around $800, is the closest current model. The slimmer cut in the modern range is called the Fitzgerald. Brooks Brothers named it after him. The boat shoes. Sperry Topsider, about $100. The shoe Paul Sperry invented in 1935. Sperry was a Connecticut sailor who had nearly died falling from a slick deck. The answer came one cold winter day in his own yard when he watched his Cocker Spaniel Prince run across ice without slipping. He looked at the dog's paws, took a penknife to a piece of rubber, and cut the herringbone pattern from the pads into a shoe sole. The U.S. Navy adopted the design in 1939. Kennedy, a Navy lieutenant who commanded PT-109 in the Solomon Islands, wore them in service and never stopped. The model in production today is mechanically identical. The Nantucket Reds. Murray's Toggery Shop on Main Street, Nantucket. Around $90. Phil Murray bought the store in 1945. His son still runs it. The fabric is dyed cotton canvas in a salmon color that fades with washing and salt water into the soft pink the island is named for. The trousers were never meant to be ironed or look new. The fading is the point. Kennedy wore them. So did his brothers. So did half of Hyannis. The trousers became the uniform of an American summer the Kennedys helped invent on television. The sunglasses. This is the one almost everyone gets wrong. The sunglasses Kennedy wore on the deck of the Honey Fitz were not Ray-Bans. The originals were the American Optical Saratoga, made in Southbridge, Massachusetts. Tortoiseshell acetate frame. A.O. Eyewear has reissued the model in the original specifications, about $240. American Optical was founded in Southbridge in 1833. By the early 1960s, the town was nicknamed the Eye of the Commonwealth, and A.O. held contracts to manufacture eyewear for NASA, the U.S. military, and the President of the United States. On September 30th, 1958, then-Senator Kennedy visited the factory and was photographed walking through the floor with the workers. The Saratoga is what he wore home. He bought multiple pairs and had them fitted with prescription lenses. The Ray-Ban Wayfarer story attached itself to him decades after his death. The Kennedy Library has the originals in a glass case in Boston. The L.L. Bean Maine hunting shoe. Founded by Leon Wood Bean in Freeport, Maine in 1912. Built today in Brunswick, about $170. Bean was a 40-year-old hunter tired of wet feet. He stitched leather uppers to rubber duck hunting bottoms, sold 100 pairs through a mail order flyer, and 90 of those 100 came back. The stitching tore through the rubber. He refunded every customer, borrowed $400, redesigned the boot with triple line stitching and a tougher rubber, and sent each disappointed customer a free replacement. The triple line stitch is what is being made today. Kennedy wore them at the compound and on the rare occasions he was photographed hunting. Bobby wore them. Ted wore them. The boot became a Kennedy family object handed down through 3 generations. Washington. The Kennedy of Hyannis Port and the Kennedy of the West Wing wore different uniforms. The summer wardrobe was American. The working wardrobe was European, by careful choice, and he never publicized the French shirtmaker. Reporters figured it out by reading the buttonhole. Charvet dress shirts. Charvet, founded in 1838 at 28, Place Vendôme in Paris, is the oldest shirtmaker in continuous operation in Europe. The shop has not moved. A bespoke Charvet shirt requires 100 manual operations, 30 of them on the collar alone. Each shirt takes 30 days to make. There are 400 shades of white in the bespoke shirtings. Kennedy was not the only president on their books. Charles de Gaulle was such a devoted customer that when Charvet's heirs nearly sold the company to an American buyer in 1965, the French government intervened. De Gaulle himself encouraged a man named Denis Colbin to buy it instead. Charvet remained French. Edward VII, the Duke of Windsor, and Marcel Proust were also customers. A bespoke commission today begins around €800. Charvet ties. The same shop made his ties. Charvet's silks are woven on archival looms in Lyon, in patterns going back to the 1840s. Some of the patterns Kennedy chose from in the 1960s are still in the binder. Each tie has a second shade woven in beneath the surface, visible only at certain angles. Kennedy commissioned narrow ones, 2¼ inches wide. The slim Charvet fourfold became part of the visual vocabulary of the new frontier. About $250. The Alden tassel loafer. Alden Shoe Company, Middleborough, Massachusetts. Founded 1884. The last great shoemaker in New England, family-owned, still operating in the original plant. Alden invented the tassel loafer. Kennedy wore the Alden 663 in shell cordovan almost daily, paired with khaki trousers and a navy blazer. The silhouette he created became the archetypal American casual look of the early 1960s. Alden still produces the 663 in the original specifications. They renamed it the JFK Loafer. About $650 in shell cordovan, made by hand in Massachusetts. What he carried on his person. 3 objects went almost everywhere with him. 2 were anniversary gifts from Jackie. All 3 are now museum pieces or vanished into private collections. The Cartier tank. Cartier introduced the tank in 1917, designed by Louis Cartier, modeled on the silhouette of a Renault FT tank he had seen on the Western Front. Kennedy's tank Louis Cartier was an anniversary gift from Jackie. She gave it to him in 1957 to mark their 4th. 18-karat yellow gold. The case back engraved with his initials and the family arms. He wore it for the rest of his life. He was wearing it the morning of November 22, 1963. After the assassination, the watch was returned to Jackie at Parkland Hospital. She gave it to Evelyn Lincoln, his personal secretary, who eventually sold it to Robert L. White, the most prominent private collector of Kennedy memorabilia. Its current whereabouts are unknown. The current Tank Louis Cartier in yellow gold runs around $14,000, with the same proportions Louis Cartier drew in 1917. The Omega Ultra Thin. Reference O, T3980. Yellow gold, 26 millimeters across. Kennedy received the watch from Grant Stockdale. a Florida friend, in 1960 while he was running for president. Stockdale had it engraved before the votes were counted. President of the United States, John F. Kennedy, from his friend Grant. Kennedy wore it at the inauguration on January 20th, 1961. The Omega Museum in Biel, Switzerland, holds it now. The current descendant, the DeVille Trésor Ultra Thin, runs around $6,000. The PT-109 tie clip. In August 1943, Lieutenant John F. Kennedy was commanding a patrol torpedo boat, PT-109, in the Solomon Islands when a Japanese destroyer split his boat in half. 2 of his crew died. Kennedy swam 4 miles towing an injured crewman by a strap clenched between his teeth, then organized a rescue from a small island over the next 6 days. He came home with a back injury he carried for the rest of his life. The tie clip is a small gold pin in the shape of the boat. Kennedy commissioned them after the 1960 election. He gave them to staff, journalists, the Air Force One crew, friends from Boston. The original molds still exist. Reproductions are sold at the John F. Kennedy Presidential Library gift shop, around $45. The only object on this list Kennedy himself designed. The desk. The Hermès briefcase. Black crocodile, single buckle, trapezoidal silhouette, built at the Hermès workshops on Rue du Faubourg Saint-Honoré. Jackie gave it to him in 1953, the year they married. It was a sac à dépêches, the dispatch bag Hermès had introduced in 1937. Kennedy used it daily for 10 years. He carried it to Vienna for the meeting with Khrushchev. He carried it to Dallas. After his death, the briefcase surfaced at Guernsey's auction in 1998 and sold for $700,000. The Hermès sac à dépêches is still made in those same workshops. The silhouette has not changed since 1937. The crocodile version, by special order, has a 4 to 5 year waiting list. The Esterbrook fountain pen. Esterbrook was founded in Camden, New Jersey in 1858. By tradition, presidents use multiple pens to sign a single piece of legislation, then give the pens to the people in the room. Kennedy used Esterbrook dip writers with the standard government 2668 nib, engraved, "The President, the White House." He gave away dozens during his 1,000 days in office. The most famous of those pens were used after his death. Kennedy introduced the Civil Rights Act in June 1963 and did not live to sign it. Lyndon Johnson signed it on July 2, 1964, using more than 75 identical Esterbrook fountain pens. 1 went to Martin Luther King Jr., 6 went to Robert Kennedy. The pens that made the act real were the same model Kennedy had been using for 3 years. The original company closed in 1971. The brand was relaunched in 2018. The SD model is back in production, around $200. The Montblanc 149, Meisterstück 149, about $850. Kennedy used 3 pens regularly, the Esterbrook for signings, the Parker 45 for correspondence, the Montblanc 149 for personal letters, black resin barrel, gold-plated cap, the white star at the crown. The 149 entered production in 1952 and became the desk pen of every Western leader sitting across the table from him: de Gaulle, Adenauer, Macmillan. The pen has not been redesigned in 70 years. What he kept private? The cigars. H. Upmann Petite Corona, the cigar from the opening. Salinger told the story himself, decades later, in a 1992 essay for Cigar Aficionado. Kennedy averaged 4 to 5 cigars a day, and he died with cigars from the original 1200 still locked in the humidor. H. Upmann was founded in Havana in 1844 by a German banker named Hermann Upmann. After the Revolution, the business split. The Cuban factory still operates in Havana. The non-Cuban operation runs out of the Dominican Republic. The Dominican version is what an American can legally buy. The fragrance. 8 and Bob, about $180. The story is romantic and contested. As told by the brand, in the summer of 1937, a 20-year-old Kennedy was traveling through the south of France with his college friend Lem Billings when he met an aristocrat named Albert Fouquet who blended his own cologne. Kennedy asked for a sample. After Kennedy returned home, Fouquet sent 8 bottles with a note, and 1 for Bob. Robert Kennedy was 11. Fouquet died in a car accident the following year. During the Nazi occupation, his butler Philippe hid the cologne inside hand-cut books to evade confiscation. The Kennedy connection has not been independently verified. The pre-war French formula behind the modern relaunch is documented. Floris, founded 1730 on Jermyn Street, London. Same address. Floris, number 89 is the fragrance Kennedy is reported to have worn for formal occasions, about $170. Acqua di Parma Colonia, founded in Parma in 1916. Light, citrus-driven. The Mediterranean cologne of summer at the Cape, about $130. The Mind. Profiles in Courage. Kennedy began the book in 1954 while recovering from spinal surgery in Palm Beach, lying flat across 2 long convalescences. His speechwriter Ted Sorensen did the bulk of the drafting. The book profiles 8 U.S. senators who took unpopular stands of conscience. Published January 1st, 1956. Won the Pulitzer Prize for Biography in 1957. Still in print. About $18 in paperback. From Russia with Love. In 1955, Kennedy was sick at home and sent for a book. A Newport friend named Marion Otzi Leiter sent over her copy of Casino Royale, the first James Bond novel. The Kennedys were hooked and ordered each new one as it came out. In March 1961, the journalist Hugh Sidey published a list of Kennedy's 10 favorite books in Life magazine. Lord David Cecil's biography of Lord Melbourne was at the top. From Russia with Love by Ian Fleming was at number 9. The only work of fiction on the list. The article ran on a Friday. By Monday, Fleming's American sales had quadrupled. Within 5 years, he had sold 30 million copies in the United States. The James Bond franchise as it exists today is built on a foundation Kennedy laid by accident, with one line in a magazine. The last film John F. Kennedy ever watched was the screen adaptation of From Russia with Love, on the night of November 21st, 1963. He flew to Texas the next morning. The book is in print, about $16. The Carolina Rocker. In 1955, Kennedy's physician, Dr. Janet Travel, bought a hand-built rocking chair from the P&P Chair Company in Asheboro, North Carolina. The model was listed in their catalog as Style Number 1000. Travel named it the Carolina Rocker and began prescribing it for chronic back pain. Kennedy was one of her patients. He took the chair to the Senate. When he became president, it was the only piece of furniture he brought to the White House from his Senate office. He bought 11 more, placed in the Oval Office on Air Force One, at Hyannis Port, at Palm Beach, on the presidential yachts. Photographs show him in it during cabinet meetings with Edward R. Murrow, with foreign heads of state. After the Oval Office photographs began circulating, P&P started receiving 400 to 500 phone orders a day. They were invited to the White House and politely declined. P&P closed in 2008. The Troutman Chair Company of North Carolina acquired the original pattern and tooling in 2009. They build it today, by hand, from steam-bent oak with a woven cane seat, about $650. One more. Rose Kennedy's recipe, the one Kennedy ate at Hyannis his entire life. 2 pounds of haddock, a piece of salt pork, onion, potatoes, butter, milk, bay leaf, slow simmer, served with oyster crackers in a white ceramic bowl. The recipe is held in the John F. Kennedy Presidential Library archives. About $20 to make for 4 people. Rose lived to 104. She made the chowder for 9 children, 28 grandchildren, and a husband who became one of the most powerful men in American politics. She made it for John before he was a senator, before he was a president, before he was a memory. There is a particular kind of New England Sunday in that recipe. A slate blue afternoon over the Sound, the smell of fish stock and butter coming through a screen door. You will understand why he kept going home. A pair of boat shoes, a cigar, a fountain pen, a bowl of chowder. Kennedy was assassinated on November 22, 1963. He was 30 days short of 47. The era he ran is over. The objects he kept close are still here, built by the same companies, in some cases in the same buildings, by the great-grandchildren of the people who built them for him. If something on this list spoke to you, every product is linked in the description below. Choose carefully. He had 1,000 days.
Thank you everyone so much for watching Cultured Elegance. If you'd love to support the channel, you can become a channel member today by clicking Join at the bottom of the screen. Thank you everyone so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.